Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the MFC Approach podcast. I am very, very excited today to have a special guest on, Jeff Hoehn. Jeff, welcome, dude.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. I was super excited when you asked me to come on. I freaking love doing these things, and I have my podcast, so I get to interview a lot of people. So it's always fun to do the opposite and get to talk and everything like that. So looking forward to it, man. I really appreciate you asking me to come on.
Absolutely, dude. And that's, at the end, I think, Jeff, you put out some of the best content that I've come across. And so I definitely want to encourage everybody, to check out your stuff as well. So we'll for sure mention your podcast and anything else you want to at the end. But guys, I wanted to give just a brief intro to who it is you're listening to today. And so Jeff actually posted on Instagram 45 minutes ago, the absolute perfect thing. And I noticed it and I was like, hey, let's read that as a bio. So anyways, guys, Jeff is married. He has a little pup and a little baby on the way. They are from St. Louis and they love to travel, hike. I don't know if drinking coffee is the right thing, but just coffee in general is on here. And to try new restaurants. He is a big fan of hockey and sports in general, but mostly hockey, it sounds like, from what I've understood about Jeff so far.
Yep.
And the rest of the time he works on perfecting his craft of being a coach, a trainer, and himself as well, because Jeff definitely lives the part of health and nutrition and fitness. So just to give you guys an idea of what his credentials are and who it is you're listening to, Jeff has a master's in human performance and nutrition. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, N1 biomechanics and anatomy certification, PN1 nutrition coach, functional nutrition and metabolism certified, a member of multiple research reviews, Mass, Allen Aragon Research Review, and Examine. Is that another one that I'm not familiar with that one. The other two I know, but
yep. Yeah. Examine is basically I think their big thing was they got into like supplements and stuff, but they have all kinds of like research on really around nutrition. I feel like it's their big one, but they do dive into like, muscle gain and exercise and stuff like that. And
awesome.
Again, it's another thing there to just find any type of research there with that. I like those type of things because they break it down, and I don't know about you, man, but I don't like sitting through and trying to read a ton of research papers. It's really challenging. And so that kind of like breaks it down. Also, one thing before we move on, I'm actually a little disappointed. You left out one thing in my bio.
Oh boy.
It was the 3-time fantasy football champion.
I thought about reading that and then I just glanced right over it. So yeah, 3-time. Don't want to overshadow that for sure. 3-time fantasy football champ. I love it. I just participated in my first ever fantasy football league this last year, and not gonna lie, didn't do great because I forgot to update my roster almost every week. And anyways, maybe better luck next year.
It's a time commitment. So, hey, maybe we can talk about that today instead. I can, get you that. Yeah. But no, I'm just kidding, obviously.
A proper approach to fantasy football.
Yep.
All right, man. So anyways, guys, obviously Jeff is very qualified and I'm very excited to have him here today and really look forward to diving into our topic. But first, Jeff, I want to give you just the floor for a couple of minutes. This is something that I really like to do with everybody that I have on the show, no matter, what it is they do and where they're at in life. But I really want to give you an opportunity, man, to kind of give us an idea. I mean, we have all these credentials and things you like and stuff, but like, give me an idea of like who you are, where were you born? Where were you raised? How were you raised? And did that have, an impact on where you are today?
Yeah. So I've actually always, I was born and raised in St. Louis. I moved out for like 3 years for college, went down to Springfield. It's only 3 hours away. So I pretty much have always lived in Missouri. So that's where I'm from. As far as like, kind of background there with that, I had a good family life, had younger brother and sister, and my parents, raised me. They were always there for me. So, that obviously is super nice to have that support there with that. So I definitely think that has helped me, become the person I am today with that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I was raised. I don't know if you want to kind of know about my background in terms of like getting into kind of fitness and nutrition and kind of how all that started.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I, probably like everybody, I started, I was short, skinny. I was a skinny kid. So like for me, working out was kind of a way to, give me some confidence and everything like that. So my dad had some weights, these like old school weights. It was the ones where you like, you put the weight on, then you have to like screw it on and everything
Oh
like
yeah.
that. So old
Oh
school like
yeah.
that. So did a ton of curls with those, do a ton of push-ups. That was kind of my introduction into weight training. So I did a ton of that stuff. And then, I played sports growing up in high school, and, we did need to do some training for that. And I always talk about how I wasn't a huge fan of like the workouts. It was more so like the conditioning type stuff. I really hated. I just wasn't a fan of working out. But I do remember we had a weight training class, and me and my buddy, we would do squats and curls. So like that was like our two main things. Like we didn't do a ton of bench pressing, we didn't do a ton of upper body. It was just like squats and curls. And with the curls, we would do like run the rack, and then we would do the thing where like you would do one, and then you pass it on, and he would do one, and then I would do two, and it was just crazy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my intro into weight training and everything like that. I wasn't, like I said, a huge fan of weightlifting, but then, when I got out of high school, I wasn't playing sports anymore. And so I joined a gym, and I would only go with my buddies. But, I started to notice like I wanted to be bigger. I wanted to build more muscle. And I just started to notice, how it helped me, build confidence and, stuff like that. So I just kind of got the itch, right? And just stayed consistent. And, I luckily started to be able to go by myself. I didn't always need my friends to go anymore at that point. But so I always, that's kind of how I got into working out from that perspective, and just stay consistent. And I've really been consistent since, man. And it's just been something that's, given me confidence, but it's also taught me so many life lessons as well too, along the way. And I that's what I love about it the most, right? And I think it's definitely an anchor for other aspects of your life. And so for me, that's, the big kind of why for me is like, I want to teach other people that because I really do think it helps anchor you, and it just leads to so much other things in your life, right? And so that's kind of my background into how I got to working out. I don't know if you want me to go into more detail in terms of how I got to being a coach today or anything like that.
I wouldn't mind just like a little bit, dude. Like what?
Yep.
I mean, when you graduated, you said you graduated high school and you kept going to the gym. Like at what point did you go to college, and at what point did you decide, to pursue a master's degree in this?
Yeah. So I actually started at a community college, and that's when I started kind of working out. And then I ended up going down to Springfield, Missouri State University. And again, during that time, I was just staying consistent with working out. I actually got my business degree, or my degree, my undergrad in business. It wasn't even nutrition or training related. I do remember like I was almost done with my undergrad, and I kind of was like, should I do something to exercise? And I was like, no, I just need to finish this out, and down the line I can end up pursuing it, So I graduated, came back to St. Louis, and I started as a gym manager. I was an assistant manager at a local chain gym, and after like a year or two, got promoted to like the manager. But like it was kind of day-to-day stuff, signing people up, running the club and stuff like that. It wasn't like personal training or anything like that. And I just remember like I would sign people up, and we'd have this great conversation, and like they'd be excited to get started, and then I would never see these people again, right? Because I didn't really have any control over their training or anything like that. I just felt like there was something else there. You know what I mean? I just like I wasn't fulfilled. And so I had this crazy thought. I was like, man, should I, I really enjoy this stuff. I want to be someone that's like an expert in this. And I really want to like learn more about exercise and building muscle and stuff. I always thought it was super fascinating. And so I just like, I had this, there was a trainer in the gym that I worked at, and he kind of talked me into pursuing personal training. And I just remember, man, there was one night where I was like talking to him, and we were talking about the changes at the gym. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm putting in my 2 weeks tomorrow. So I ended up putting in my 2 weeks. I think I was 25 or 26 at the time, and full-time income. And I just like, you know what? I'm going to go into personal training. Right. And I just knew, like, it was, whenever I talk about this, I'm always like, I just knew that it was something I wanted to do. I was like, I got to do this. And it just always seemed to work out. Right. And so I just, dropped that full-time job. And at 25, 26, I became a trainer. And, the company I worked for initially, you were only getting paid for your sessions, right? It wasn't like you weren't getting paid if you weren't training people. So I went from a full-time income to, having no clients, essentially making no money for a few months. And I just always kind of knew that it's what I wanted to do. And that was always kind of my guiding factor. So that's why I got into training. As far as where I'm at now, I don't know if you have any questions or anything. If not, I can kind of talk about how I got into the online space and stuff like that.
Yeah, let's go there. I think, yeah, I mean, you're answering all my questions as we go, so it's perfect, man.
Yeah, so I did in person for a couple of years, and luckily my mentor at the time, he was that trainer I was talking about. He kind of was the one that put in my head about online training, and I was just like, what is this? And then I kind of thought, I was like, man, that could be something that could definitely work out, right? You can reach more people. So I started out in person, and then I started the online on the side with him. And, luckily just whenever some clients would wrap up in person, I would just kind of transition them over to online. And then finally, I just, that started to grow, and I saw the potential there with the online business. So I started to put a little bit more time into that. So fast forward, a couple years, and the online business was doing okay, nothing crazy, but and then COVID hit, and then I hired a mentor. His name's Jeremiah, and he really kind of helped me take my online business to the next level. I just started staying super consistent with content, like just posting. Like my content initially was like me just working out. It was like, okay, that doesn't really help anybody, right? So then I started to make content that I was like, okay, this would be helpful for me, and this would have been helpful for me, in previous years. And that really helped grow my business. He really pushed me to start a podcast. And I just, I applied the things that I learned from working out, staying consistent, and I applied that to growing my business. And, I got lucky and stuck with it, obviously found some right people there to help me along the way. And, that's kind of where we're at today. And somewhere along there, I decided to pursue a master's in human performance and nutrition. It was online. It wasn't like I had to go into like all the classes and stuff, but it was still, big time commitment, everything. Like that. So,
just a little side note there.
Yeah. But yeah, I just got the itch, man. And I just really wanted to not only help people, but I wanted to learn, the best ways to do things. And that's where I, really rely on like the evidence-based approach, right? It's the evidence-based approach being, you take the research, you take your experience, and then you also take the clients, like what they, what has worked for them in the past and what they enjoy, and you kind of bundle it all together, right? And that's kind of my approach to it, right? Is taking that, and then that turned into, not only, hey, I want to work on body composition with clients, but I also want to make sure that we take this health first approach as well too. I think that's super important, because I've seen so many times with people and me in the past as well too, where, you try to change your body composition and you try to push it too hard, or maybe there's some fad diet out there, some training protocol that, worked for somebody and people are trying to push online, and, it just leads to you not only maybe not being the best physically from a health perspective, but also mentally as well too. So I really try to take that health first approach, because I think that's, super important. And, I always say, if you take a looks first approach, you may not get there, and your health is going to be, hurt in the process. But if you take a health first approach, not only do you improve your health, but your looks usually get improved as a byproduct of that, right? As kind of an added bonus. Yeah. So it's kind of my long approach there to get to that. So
I love the way you just explained that, though, the health first approach versus a looks first approach, because I mean, oftentimes I have conversations with people who say like, oh, I feel like people are really hesitant to say that they want to look good, because oftentimes that's perceived as, being vain or really self-centered or whatever it may be. And even though I don't necessarily agree with that, I love the approach of like, well, let's focus on your health then. Like, let's focus on your health. And as a result, as a byproduct, you're going to look good. Yeah. And so I really like the way you explain that there.
Real quick on that, just so I can give like a personal story for myself, so like, there's a couple things that happened for me, so like I said, I was a skinny, short. And so I, would see people like football players, for example. I'm like, man, I want to freaking look like that. The one guy I can think of is LaRon Landry. He was like a muscle farm guy. He was this like safety for the Washington, I think it was the Redskins. He played for a couple teams, and this dude was just freaking jacked. And I was like, dude, I want to look like that. He's like 6'2", like 250 pounds. I'm sitting here 5'6". I'm like, dude, I want to weigh as much as him. So, people told me like, hey, if you want to get bigger, you gotta eat, right? So like when I was down at Missouri State, I remember like I was working out, but like I just wasn't like building the muscle that I wanted to at that point. And so I was like, all right, I gotta just push the push the calories. So my weight went from like probably 140 all the way up to maybe 180, 185-ish in a not in like a short time, but over a couple year span here. And I remember it got to the point to where I was just trying to, every time I weighed in, I wanted to see that scale weight go up, right? So it just led to, like, it was helpful in that it did help me gain some weight, but it also led to a lot of fat gain in the process. And
did you say 140 to 185?
Yeah, like over
Holy
a
cow.
couple, over a couple year span. But I remember, I think the peak I saw my weight was like somewhere around 185. And, I would like cheat the system where I'd like weigh in after like a big meal and be like, okay, not understanding. Right.
Yeah.
But, to top it off, I'm in college. So I'm also, like binge drinking on the weekends, right? Friday night, you're just getting hammered. Saturday night, you are too. So it's like, okay, just basically just trying to push things there with that. And then from a workout perspective, trying to get bigger. So it's like, hey, I'm just trying to do as much volume as I can. I'm just trying to push it as much as I can, do as much as I can. And, that led to some injuries and stuff like that. So again, I wasn't focused on my health first. It was more just that looks approach and trying to go there. And, that's kind of where that got me in trouble there with that. So I just wanted to kind of, give a personal story there with that to kind of tie that in.
I love it, man. I love it. Perfect, dude. Well, thank you. I think that's super valuable to understand, where people come from and how you got to where you are. And to realize, I think one of the biggest things, I mean, especially if you guys go look at Jeff's Instagram, it's like, he is a good looking dude. Like he has built a lot of muscle and he is lean, and it's like, that didn't happen overnight. Like, so anyways, it's just, I love always having that at the forefront and realizing, like, no matter what it is, whether it's your physique or whether it be like your education, I mean, like that took time too, right? Things take time and consistency, and the process of just like transforming your body is so applicable to so many different aspects of life. Like nothing good happens overnight. Like I truly believe that. And so just to kind of help people paint a picture or see the full picture of like your story, it's like you got to where you are today because of steady, consistent effort and progress. And that's ultimately, how we get to where we want to be and having sustainable long-term results. So anyways, man, I appreciate it. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our topic today.
Yep.
I'm really excited to talk to Jeff about this because this is a topic that, I feel like I have a knowledge of, but as I've talked to you more, Jeff, and as I, again, just see your content and stuff that you put out and listen to your podcast, I'm like, I feel like body recomposition is something that you kind of specialize in. And so I'm really, really excited to kind of dive into this with you and help people understand, because maybe you're listening to this and you're not even familiar with that term, right? Like body recomposition, what does that mean? Like, because oftentimes, we focus so much on either a fat loss phase or, a muscle building phase. And I think for the general population, I would say that's probably all they know is, okay, well, I can either lose fat or I can gain muscle. But I feel like a lot of light has been shed on body recomposition over the last, 5-10 years. Maybe I'm wrong there, but so I wanted to get Jeff, your input and your knowledge and your wisdom on this. So if you could, what is body recomposition?
Yeah. So I have kind of like I have like two types of body recomp that I talk about. Okay. So we have short-term and long-term. So I'll go over both of those. So short-term is probably the one that people hear, like they hear the most, right? And this is the one that, like, if you look at research or anything and they talk about body recomposition, this is kind of what they're talking. This is not kind of, this is what they're talking about. This is that simultaneous fat loss and muscle gain. Okay. So that would be like a short-term body recomp. So that's where you're, like you said there, you don't, like, a lot of people get caught up like, hey, should I lose weight? Should I gain weight? And then it's like, okay, maybe you don't have to, and we can talk about, who this may be better for and who's best suited for it. But so that's the short term, right? So simultaneous fat loss, muscle gain. Then I have long term, and this is over time, we're losing body fat and building muscle. And I have these two because with the short term, it is going to slow down at some point, right? Unfortunately, you're not always going to be able to like have max fat loss, have max muscle gain with that. That is going to slow down over time. So at some point, we do need to switch over to a long-term body recomp where it's like now we're having periods of time where we do have, we drop body fat and we build muscle there with that. And so those are my two body recomp. Like if we were going to break that down. So I think that explains it pretty well there in terms of, what it is.
Yeah, so I guess based off of those two different types of recomp, short term and long term, I guess is are each of those for specific types of people?
Yeah, so I guess I can talk about, who is it better, like which ones, for who, and maybe some pros and cons of each. So, everybody's going to want the short term, right? I mean, who isn't going to want to lose fat and build muscle at the same time? However,
Right.
there are specific people who would benefit the most from this. And I will say, I think more people can benefit from it than what you think. And we can talk about, why that is and everything. But so who's gonna be best for the short term, right? That kind of the golden zone of fitness, right? Losing fat and building muscle. So it's going to be better for newbies. Okay, so somebody who is new to the gym. Biggest reason there with that is, you know, our body adapts to what we do to it. So if you haven't lifted weights or sent that signal to build muscle, it's like you're fresh. Like no matter what you do, like it's gonna work. So you don't really need this. Like you just need to do something that you haven't done yet, and your body's gonna adapt to that pretty quickly initially, right? So it's gonna be better for newbies. So if you haven't been lifting for a while, you're gonna be somebody who is primed for this. Higher body fat percentage. So if you're somebody who say is for women, maybe 25 to 30% or higher, for men, let's say 15 to 20% or higher. And there's still some wiggle room there, which I'll talk about, but you're in this prime position to be able to drop body fat and build muscle. And the biggest reason is because body fat is basically just stored energy. So you don't need to, like, if basically you don't need to be in a surplus or at maintenance to build muscle. Like you have that energy on your body right then and there, right? And if you're new, and if you're a newbie as well too, it's like, okay, that's even better. So again, a lot of people don't realize that if you have higher body fat, you're able to recomp. So again, this is, if you think about this, someone who's overweight is like, well, I need to drop weight, but I probably also need to build muscle. I don't know which one to do first. Well, hey, good news, like you can do both at the same time, right? And that's what I push people to, especially if you're in that position. Like you need to do both because we need to make sure you build muscle. And then we also need to make sure you drop some body fat. Next.
Real quick, Jeff,
yeah.
I'm just curious, is there a ceiling to that? Let me see here. So you gave a range of body fat percentage there, right? For each, both men and women. I mean, if somebody's above that range that you mentioned, like, are those people also pretty ripe for body recomp? Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, if anything, the higher you are, the better
Okay.
position you'll be for that, right?
Gotcha.
Because again, body fat is just basically stored energy on the body there with that, right?
Cool.
So yeah, so there's that. And then next would be, and this is where if you haven't, like, say you've had a long layoff from like an injury, or you just weren't motivated to train for a little while, like, yeah, you've been training, like you've trained a lot in the past, you're somebody who can also recomp, right? Because you're coming from a long layoff. I'm sure somebody listening has like not lifted weights for a little bit of time, and all of a sudden it's like you get back into it and you just freaking like blow up. You're primed for this as well too. So those are the people there. Now, then I have this other kind of group of people where, maybe you're not, again, you don't have a ton of body fat. You've been training for a little while, but maybe your training protocols aren't great, right? They're not geared towards like building muscle. Like, yeah, you go to the gym, you lift, but it's like not really any progressive overload. Maybe you do like, and this isn't bad or anything like that, but maybe you do a lot of like group style type classes, or maybe you do like a lot of high intensity type work. And because of that, like you still have this kind of runway to be able to lose some body fat and build muscle, even though you've been like training for a little while. Same thing with nutrition. Maybe you've been training for a while, but you've gone super low protein for a while. Your just overall diet quality is not very great, right? Like you have this runway to where you can do both at the same time, or poor lifestyle, right? So a lot of people don't have sleep dialed in. If your sleep's poor, that's going to impact your body composition. Maybe your stress management is poor, or you just have this lifestyle that is just super high stress. You work a really demanding job. You have 3 kids to take care of, all under the age of 2.
Yeah, we know about that.
And then you just don't like, and then you also try to train like super hard on top of it, and it's like your recovery bucket is just overflowing at that point, right? If we can get those things dialed in, we're going to have this runway to be able to do both. Now, one thing I want to add to this, if you're someone who is trying to build a ton of muscle and you are super lean, like say you're, for men, 8 to 12% or lower, For women, 15 to 20% or lower, you're not going to be able to, your ability to lose body fat in the process is going to be a lot lower, right? So like for that type of person, this isn't going to be great there with that. So what I find is that, when we lump all this together, most people have some runway to be able to body recomp and do the short-term body recomp for a period of time. Now, again, how long we can do it's all going to depend on those things. Someone who hasn't weight trained before, has high body fat percentage, can really dial in their sleep. They're going to be able to do this for a lot longer than someone who's 12 to 15% body fat, sleeps pretty well, nutrition's decent. They have decent training protocols. For them, their runway is going to be a lot shorter there with that. So those are my long answer of all the people that can recomp.
Well, that's great. And so, I mean, just based off of that, guys, obviously chances are you are probably somebody who could benefit from a recomp.
Yep. At least for a little bit. Right. Because like I said, when most people come to me, it's like, I think most people think they're a little bit more advanced with training than they think they are. And when you really dive into it, it's like, man, we can really improve our protocols to build muscle. And it's not that like hypertrophy style training to build muscles, this magic, like, thing, but that's going to be the best way to build muscle when, again, that's ultimately what we're trying to do here in the body recomp is we need to focus on the muscle building side of things. And so that's why I kind of tell people, like, no matter what, if you like to do some other type of training, whether it is more group style, maybe it's like CrossFit, or, you like to do powerlifting, for example, it's like, those things will have some carryover, but we still want to make sure at least half of our training. And again, I don't want to, like, I'm just trying to, doesn't necessarily have to be half, but I'm just trying to put a number out there. At least half of your training, you want to be something that's geared towards hypertrophy, so we can, really send that signal to build more muscle there with that. So again, it's not that like hypertrophy style training is this magic training. It's just, again, when we're trying to do this specific type of thing, it is higher on the priority list there.
Gotcha. And I love, man, because I feel like in anybody's journey or transformation, it's like the two things that are always focused on are nutrition and fitness, right? And I would say probably first, people always focus on fitness first and then nutrition. But you mentioned a few things, and I just kind of want to re-mention these and bring them back up and maybe have you kind of go through the list again. It's just like other areas that people are missing out on huge benefit. Would you mind just running through those one more time?
Yeah. So you're kind of talking about like the lifestyle and nutrition and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So I think from a nutrition perspective, some big kind of some things people overlook is protein. I've kind of changed my mind on, like, I do think protein is super important, but I do think, people maybe try to, like, in the fitness industry now, maybe over promote protein, and it is super important, but we do want to make sure it's at least at a decent level. But I think people take that too far to think it's just like, oh, protein everything, and I think that can lead to some issues. But protein is going to be super important. You at least making sure that you're at a minimum amount. I would say 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight is a good kind of number to be at there with that. Also on nutrition, I think diet quality. So, sometimes people overly focus on just calories or macros, and those are important, but we need to look at what those foods are made up of, right? You can be focused on calories, and again, it could be, highly processed foods or just super tasty foods that don't provide a lot of like vitamins and minerals and fiber and stuff like that. And, that can lead to some issues, and it can just be challenging to, moderate your caloric intake there with that. And like I said, you're just missing out on the vitamins and minerals that your body needs, to feel and perform your best there with that.
That's one thing, Jeff, real quick. Like, that's one thing I feel like I've typically done with my clients is, like, typically to start with, and it's interesting because I'll share this with everybody now. I was going to mention it at some point, but like, I actually just hired Jeff to be my coach, and I'm so excited about this because even though, like, this is what I do on a daily basis, it's funny how I know just from like talking to you last week, and then even listening to you right now, I'm just like, holy cow, I feel like he's talking exactly to me right now. You mentioned my 3 little boys and my lack of sleep and trying to train on top of that, and my stress levels with like the business and stuff, and so I'm super excited about this. But I feel like one of the things that I like to do with clients is start them just focusing on, hitting a range of calories.
Yep.
And not necessarily making huge drastic changes, right? It's just like, let's just try and dial in your calories first within a range. And then from there, it's like, okay, now let's focus on quality, or maybe dialing that range in just a little bit more. And it's been really awesome for me to see like clients who have done a really good job at this, hitting a calorie range to start with, and then focusing on quality of calories. It's amazing, and it's so cool to watch them see and feel the difference that happens there. And so I think that's just a really important point that I wanted to kind of emphasize a little bit, man. So sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. And I think when it comes to like calories, I feel like, we've been so ingrained in the fitness industry to like be like, oh, you just, low calorie, you need to be in an energy deficit to see results. And I think that's just led to people like getting to this point to where they just try to like eat as little as possible. And it's like that maybe works for a certain period of time, but then, it always catches up to you, right? You're super hungry. Again, now we're not in the greatest spot to build muscle. And so like, for example, with clients, like I just had a conversation with a client yesterday, he's been ingrained, like eat less. And so like for him, he's like eating less throughout the day, and then he gets super hungry. And so like, I'm trying to like shift his mindset to, try to eat like, yes, we do want to moderate our caloric intake, but we also need to like eat foods that are going to like provide you with the vitamins and minerals and macros you need. Right. So eating to like fuel your body and to help your body feel good versus like just trying to be restrictive and cut back. Right. Cause I feel like that's the biggest thing people do. And this is why I talked about calories initially, is because it's like, oh, well, I ate less calories today. It was a good day. But then like you look and it was like a hot dog and fries and some chips. And it's like, yeah, you ate less calories. That's good. But again, now you're not providing your body with the nutrients it needs. And now you're going to be super hungry and everything like that. So yeah, the quality of the diet, I think is super important. Plus, some of these, the other big reason too, that, I really try to push, these nutrient dense foods, at least a good base. Like I'm not saying that that's the only foods people need to eat, but if we can get a good base of those nutrient dense foods, again, it gives you those vitamins and minerals, but it gives you a good baseline. And now you're able to include a little bit of those tastier foods in, but you're less likely to overeat them. Whereas like if you come at it from just a calorie standpoint and trying to fit in all those tasty foods within your calories, not only are you not getting those vitamins and minerals, but now you're hungry. Those foods are going to be harder to moderate, and you're just going to feel like you're just, just rolling downhill with food. Right. So like another big thing there with, food quality and the importance of it.
Yeah, that's one thing I always try to emphasize too, is just like 80-20 rule. Like I'm sure you've probably heard of that, Jeff, the 80-20 rule of eating 80%, whole nutritious foods, and 20% of the time, enjoying those tasty treats and stuff that you like. I truly believe that's sustainable and that's healthy. So I like that a lot. Cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think those are the big things from a nutrition perspective. And again, I think the other thing with nutrition is also making sure that, within the diet quality and stuff like that, like, making sure somebody's not under eating too much, but they're also not overeating. So, that's maybe where the concept of the ranges come in, but, making sure that we're, again, not overeating, but under eating, because if we overeat, well, obviously that's going to lead to fat gain. That's not going to be great from a fat loss perspective. But if we under eat, well, now we're going to impact, again, how we feel. We're going to impact our ability to build muscle, right? Which is a huge part of this equation. And you're just not going to feel great, right? And then we talk about the importance of health. So, making sure that you don't eat too much, but also making sure that you do eat enough, because like I just said there, a lot of times when people come to me, it's like, oh, well, I had a low calorie day. So I it was a good day, or, hey, I skipped a meal, I skipped calories, so it was a good day. But again, that always eventually catches up. So, I always tell people, like, we don't want to undereat either, because that is certainly an issue as well too. So I'd say from a nutrition perspective, those are probably like the three big ones there with that. I can dive into and I guess one more that I should add into is, making sure that you aren't like totally skipping out on like carbohydrates as well too. Especially because, again, we're focused on building muscle in this process. That's a big part of the equation. And, that's the big thing that I see people, try to skip out on, is carbohydrates. And it's going to be super important for recovery. It's going to be super important for training. And it's going to help you hit fiber, and you're just going to feel better, if you eat some carbs versus just completely, skipping out on carbs there.
Yeah.
So
the narrative, man, like even I mean, I think this one's a little bit older, but like fat, like not consuming fat. I feel like a little bit older generation kind of that applies more to them because that was pushed, I feel like, a lot more in like the 90s and stuff. But it's like, guys, anything that is extreme like that, like telling you not to eat a certain food group or a certain macro or something entirely, like it's just not right. It's not true. You need carbs, you need fats. Like your body is fueled and ran by those things. And so just like eliminating those things completely, I mean, it's not going to be pretty in the end. And I know there's a lot of like, I mean, like the carnivore diet and stuff like that, keto diet and stuff. I don't know. I've never met anybody personally who has done those things and has done them for a long time and is continuing to do them. Like those things are so unsustainable. And in my opinion, I don't know. I don't think they're necessary really. They can play a role in some people's journey, but bottom line is like, why not build good habits? Why not learn how to incorporate carbs and fats into your everyday nutrition and feel your absolute best? So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think anything that tells you to completely omit something, as long as there's no like health issue or anything like that, I think it's just, yeah, it's not,
right.
you got to be careful with that. And, you know, my kind of philosophy on this is you know, I don't give somebody like a specific number to hit for carbohydrates or fats. I like to like kind of look at minimums and see where they're at there with that, and just making sure that they're not like completely missing out on something. And then from there, you know, getting feedback from clients and how they're feeling and what their results are, you know, then we can kind of dive into, okay, where's your fats and carbs at? You know, maybe we can make some small adjustments here with it, but, you know, kind of letting it fall where it does. So that way people don't feel like they have to be super restrictive in terms of, oh, I got to eat, you know, this meal that has 18 grams of carbohydrates, 6.5 grams of fats, and 2 grams of protein. It's like, okay, that just, you know, that's not helping out. So
yeah, exactly. Cool.
I could go over the sleep and like stressful lifestyle side of things. Yeah.
Let's do that. Yep.
Yeah. So this is another big one that, you know, people often overlook. It's, you know, it's always like, oh, hey, you know, training and nutrition, those things are super important. But I think people just overly focus on those and they kind of forget about these two things. So, you know, with sleep's super important. Now, you know, you have 3 kids like you, and sleep's tough to come by, right? So I think here with sleep, it's just prioritizing it more. You know, again, for some people, it's going to be hard to get more sleep than others. But again, just prioritizing it. And I think having some good sleep hygiene practices in place can be super important. So I can just name a few here that I think are like kind of like low hanging fruit. One is, you know, if you can get outside early in the morning, like within a couple hours of waking, right, that kind of helps set your circadian rhythm there. If you can get outside a little bit more throughout the day, that can be helpful. Caffeine intake's a big one there with that as well, where, you know, overall caffeine intake, but how late you have it in the day as well too. You know, sometimes people take that pre-workout at like 6 p.m. and they're like, I can't sleep. It's like, well, you know, you gotta dial that back. Have some sort of bedtime routine as well too, you know, where you just kind of wind down and you tell your body to relax, can be super helpful. Keep the room, you know, nice and cool, keep it dark. And then the big one that I see people do is like sitting on their phone in bed. So really try to limit, you know, really light blue light exposure, like right before bed too, can be super helpful there. So it's not always getting 8 to 9, 10 hours or more per day or per night, but, you know, working on some of these kind of low hanging fruit things that people maybe kind of overlook can be super helpful. And the biggest reason with sleep is, you know, sleep will impact the muscle building side of things. There was a study, they looked at 2 groups. One group slept for 5.5 hours. The other group was 8.5. They both were in an energy deficit. They both lost the same amount of weight, but the group that slept less, they were sleep restricted, lost a little bit more weight from lean body mass. There's some caveats to that study, but again, the general thing there is that, hey, like this, you know, poor sleep is going to be something that can impact your lean body mass. So that's why I place a huge priority on sleep. Plus, if you don't get, you know, if sleep's off, it's also going to impact your body composition in that, you know, the next day your willpower is going to be lower. You know, it's going to be harder for you to make good choices. Hunger is going to be a little bit higher. We're going to want more, you know, our body's going to crave more highly palatable, tasty foods the next day as well too, which can, you know, make it harder to stay in the energy balance that we want to stay in. And so those are kind of the big things there with sleep. And then you're just, you know, less motivated to do things. And then I feel like you're also or like you just had this higher feeling of stress as well too, because you didn't sleep well, right? So it's like this kind of vicious cycle there with that. So, always focused on sleep and just, trying to prioritize it as much as we can, understanding that, hey, not everybody's going to be able to get, 8, 9, 10 hours every single night. So just prioritizing it. I guess the other big sleep thing that people overlook is when they fall asleep and when they wake up. A lot of times people will like have this nice schedule during the week where they, sleep 10 to 6. And then on the weekends, it's like 1 a.m. to like 9 a.m. And that can kind of throw you off a little bit. So try to keep that sleep and wake time relatively similar. I don't think you need to get it down to the exact minute, but I think anything more than like 1 to 2 hours, you will start to notice that kind of impact your sleep there with that. So I don't know if you have any like questions or thoughts on the sleep side of things.
If you need help with keeping a consistent schedule, just have a kid.
Yes, Jeff. That's true. That's true. Not initially though, right?
Yeah. It's good. All of that is so valuable, man. And I don't know. There's so many little bits and pieces, honestly, guys, that I'm taking from everything that Jeff is saying. It's like, it's so funny to me, dude. Like I know, and I've heard these things over and over again. Right. But just here and there, I keep hearing things like, oh man, like I could definitely do that to try and improve my sleep just a little bit more. And so again, I'm excited to kind of get into the details of my personal stuff with you, Jeff, and really get all that stuff dialed in. I'm so excited because I don't know, honestly, I think it's going to benefit me a lot, but also just anybody that I interact with, my wife, my kids, my clients as well. So I'm really excited, dude, and really appreciative of it.
Yeah, me too, man. Real quick, do you mind if I hit on the stress side of things real quick too? Because I think that's a big component as well too. So I also have like in the lifestyle things, stress management, right? And I think people hear that and they think that like, oh, they just need to reduce all stress in their life and they should never be stressed. But that's not the case, right? Like the goal isn't to reduce all stressors. It's just to manage your stress a lot better and to kind of cut out the unnecessary stress in your life. And again, I think it's also important to state that stress isn't just like your feeling of, oh, hey, I had a bad day at work, I'm stressed. It's, things that you do to your body can be stressors as well too that we don't think. And so I always tell people we basically have this like recovery bucket, okay? And everything falls into the same bucket. It's not a nutrition and training bucket and then a life stress bucket. It all falls into the same things, or they all fall into the same bucket. So, and we all have so much that we all have only so much that we can handle, from that perspective. So, this is where like looking at someone's training, like if they're, training super intensely and they also, again, have, 3 kids to take care of, they have a full-time job that has stress, they have, relationship stress, they have all these things that's all going to kind of lower, it's going to all add into it. We can only recover from so much. So, finding the balance there is super helpful as well too. And a calorie deficit's a stressor on the body. So if you're always trying to drop weight and you're seeing your weight trend down, like that is a stressor on the body. So that's going to impact that a little bit, right? So again, it's just reducing unnecessary stressors and making sure that we, just spend a little bit more time on things that are going to increase that bucket, right? So what are going to be some things there that will increase that? Well, not always training, balls to the wall, like having some sort of, like you're not always training as hard as you can, right? Like we're going to have some periods of time where we're going to train a little bit harder. Maybe we dial it back a little bit. Not always being in an energy deficit, right? Is going to help. A good overall diet quality is going to help, increase that recovery bucket. Sleep's going to help that. And then just having good stress management techniques is going to help increase that as well. So just making sure that you breath work can be helpful. Anything that you enjoy that like just gets you out of your head for a little bit of time and just gets you to relax and breathe and get out of your head can be super helpful. So for some people, that's like listening to music. It's just getting outside. There's so many things that you can do there with that. But again, I think the biggest thing is if I hear from someone, like I'll ask them on their initial form, how do you manage your stress? And if it's like, oh, hey, I work out, then I'm kind of like, all right, we got to work on this because I know we need to work on your stress management there with that. And again, that can impact your body composition if we're not taking that time to kind of, get out of our head, relax, focus on recovery a little bit more. That can increase your cortisol, which can impact muscle building. It can, increase your hunger and cravings for tasty food. Higher levels of cortisol can kind of just help like if you do gain body fat, it can like make it distribute a little bit more to your midsection. So you want to be careful with this. Now, that doesn't mean cortisol is all bad. Like we do need some, but it's when it's like chronically elevated and whatnot that it can become an issue there with that. And then, like I said, you want more tasty food when you're a little bit more stressed, which can, make it more challenging to stick to your energy balance. And, when we're stressed, we just also don't make as great of decisions and we're just lower. We're not as motivated to do things as well too. So again, this is a big component of a body recomp as well too, is making sure that's handled. And again, it goes back to the health first approach there with that.
Yeah, for sure. Just so many little aspects to it that I feel like we often overlook. Again, I feel like nutrition and fitness get the majority of our focus, and there's so many other little ways to enhance or optimize, this process of, body recomposition, and just overall health. So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you sharing all that. As far as, body recomposition goes, do you feel like we covered it all? Do you feel like there's anything else you want to add about body recomposition specifically?
Yeah, I think so. If you don't have any specific like questions on it, just trying to think. Yeah, we hit on most of the things here. I think, just I kind of have my like 5 pillars of body recomp, and I think weight training needs to be high on the list. Nutrition's important. We talked about things that were going to be helpful from a nutrition perspective. The lifestyle, we talked about those things. I think mindset or activities one, right? Making sure you're staying active as well too. That's a big pillar of body recomp, and then the mindset as well too, right? I think mindset is super important as well, and we can't overlook that because that does play a role, right? Like you could have the best training or nutrition program, but if like your mental game is off, your results could be limited or short-lived as well too, right? If the mental game isn't there. So this is another component that like, I really try to work on with clients. Just some examples of poor mindset so we can give your audience that is like all or nothing thinking, like feeling like you need to be perfect. I'm sure you've seen this with clients too, right, man? Where it's like they get into these like, oh, hey, I had one, I had like one bad meal. So then the whole weekend was off. Right. And it's like, all right, well, we got to work on that. Like no matter what we do from a sleep perspective, no matter what we do from a training perspective, we have to work on that because otherwise you're just, that's going to end up being your big limiting factor long-term. Right. Even like a perfection mindset where you feel like you need to hit everything perfectly. Like that can be a example of a poor mindset. Right. How do you deal with setbacks and failures? Like I'm sure you've dealt with this in your journey, but also with clients, sure. Like you're going to have some setbacks, you're going to have some failures. How do you bounce back from that? I think that's super important. Negative self-talk. Again, I'm sure you've seen this with clients when they check in, it's like they start like saying all these bad things about themselves. And it's like, whoa. We gotta, like that's, how you talk to yourself is super important, lack of patience. That's another mindset as well too there, trying to get it all right away. And then I think the other one is just like not wanting to get uncomfortable and make changes. How many times have you talked to a client and they're like, hey, I want to do this. And then like anytime they get like a tough decision comes up, they always just kind of go back to what feels good in the moment and what feels good to them. They're never willing to get uncomfortable, right? It's like same thing every check-in. Oh, I just is because this happened, or because this happened. It's like, well, look, if you want to change your body and you want to have this body recomp, like you have to, at some point, you're going to have to get uncomfortable and like make that tough choice, multiple times Otherwise, you're going to be in the same spot. So I think the mindset side of things is super important. It can't go without talking about. So.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that I like to share with, clients and just individuals that I am able to interact with is just like, I heard this, it's been probably 4 or 5 months ago, but we're all going to experience discomfort in one way or another. And so it's really up to you whether you choose productive discomfort or unproductive discomfort. And when it comes to your overall health, unproductive discomfort is just continuing to do the things you've always done, right? And not making any changes. Whereas productive discomfort is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. It is figuring out, how you can optimize your nutrition and how you can make your workouts more effective and better. And so anyways, I appreciate it, Jeff, all of the valuable information. One thing I just want to mention is that, guys, I have a checklist of body recomposition points that I would be more than happy to kind of send over to you. If that's something you'd be interested in, you can DM me on social media, specifically Instagram or Facebook. and I can send those over to you. Any questions you have, though, I know Jeff would feel more than happy to, or be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. I would be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have, and really just kind of help you get going, make the change that you want to make, in progressing and, bettering your overall health. So, yeah, man, really, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, your wisdom. It's super beneficial. I know that I learned a few things today, and I look forward to implementing them and helping my clients with those things as well. Anything, Jeff? I guess I mentioned I wanted to share your podcast as well. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, the Mind Muscle Connection podcast.
Awesome.
is mine. Yep.
And it's on Spotify. It's on all
the major, on YouTube as well too. So just search for that and it should come up there. So
awesome. And then Instagram handle?
Yeah, Jeff HOEHN _. And I'm most active on there. Like you said, you can always reach out, send me a DM if you have any questions on what we talked about today or anything like that. So
yeah. Awesome, man. Well, Jeff, thanks again, man, for being on. I really, really appreciate you and your time and again, all of your knowledge and wisdom. So hopefully have you back in the future.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on. Great questions, and it was fun. And time flies, when you talk about these things. So again, appreciate it, man. Yeah, really appreciate you.
Okay. All right, man. Well, have a good one, guys, and we'll talk to you in the next one.